Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting from this year's 2016 Detroit Jazz Festival here in downtown Detroit. Blessing the band stage and his debut with his own ensemble is the legendary drummer Herlin Riley. Now, as you might know, Mr. Riley has had a tremendous career playing with the likes of Wynton Marsalis and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, as well as the legendary Ahmad Jamal. But what really has set him apart from his contemporaries is, one, he's an educator who's still living in New Orleans, but also he's carrying on the lineage of the great New Orleans drumming. Tonight I had a chance to sit down with Mr. Riley to talk about his debut record on Mack Avenues, which is titled New Directions, as well as why it took so long to put this project together and how he's explaining his role now as a musician and teacher. He's now taking his band and making sure that he's carrying on the lineage of the great Art Blakey and many other jazz greats. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds and the debut of Mr. Herlin Riley and his ensemble performing new music off his debut Mack Avenues record release, New Directions, here on the Pace Report, reporting from this year's 2016 Detroit Jazz Festival here in downtown Detroit. Herlin Riley, this is a new direction from you, brother. And this is a fantastic record, which is now on the Mac Avenue Records imprint. I got to ask you a myriad of questions. One, what took so long? And two, why did you decide to just go full-fledged for it right now?
Well, it took so long because I was working. I've always been working as an associate or a sideman, as some people say, with other musicians and helping them to build their career and to build their sound. And everything has its time, has its season, has a season, and this is my season. I'm an older musician now, and so I wanted to make to try to do. The name of the record is called New Direction because that's what my goal is, to go in a new direction and stepping out as a leader as opposed to just a support musician. And so I wanted to just kind of model this whole thing after Art Blakey, with having some younger musicians to play with me and help me build a sound.
In doing this, because we haven't recorded a lot of recordings, this being very fresh and new to a lot of new listeners, what were some of the things that you wanted to accomplish musically on this recording?
Well, I just really wanted to do something that was full of my truth and honesty in the music. I think that's a main ingredient when you're playing improvised music, that you come with your truth and your honesty. And the recording is mostly original music, and I didn't want to record a lot of cover tunes because people have done that already, and I just wanted to make my own musical statement. And so here it is. It's a musical statement. I have a lot of music in me, man, with a lot of different styles, a lot of different concepts and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to just do a little something on the CD that kind of touched on a bit of some of the things I'm hearing in my head, and some of the things that that has helped me to bring my career to thus far.
Herlin, being a leader, as you said earlier, you're being the transition from being the side guy or an accompanist to leading your own band. What were some of the things musically and sonically that you were looking for when you were putting your band together?
Well, I was looking for young musicians, basically, who had a certain command of their instrument, and certain musicians that played with that same truth and honesty. Not necessarily looking for a formula to try to get a hit or try to be accepted or anything. Just to me, the art of jazz is about your truth, and all art to me is about your honesty and your truth. And I wanted to have musicians who play with me to bring that truth and that honesty to the table. Sonically speaking, it's always about the story that you tell, on your instrument. And I had an uncle who told me once, he said, "It's not what you play, it's what you say." And I wanted to have have musicians on me that had a voice and had something that they wanted to say.
I saw you guys play the new music at the Jazz Journalists Association's presentation awards at the Blue Note back in June, and one of the things that I have noticed about you throughout your career, you have an impeccable sense and taste of timing. It's like it comes from that great New Orleans know of great drummers, but I've noticed that when you led your band, it's like people commanded all the attention. It went from the band to you.
Well, I don't know about that, but anyway, I just, as I said, man, it's about truth and honesty, and rhythm. The timing you're talking about. Maybe you're talking about the rhythm. I don't know if you're talking about the rhythm or if you're talking about the placement of stuff that goes on inside of the music, but it's about coordination and having a rhythmic command, because all music starts with rhythm. All music starts with rhythm, and the music and the style of rhythm that you play will determine the style of music that's being played. I take that very, very seriously about playing the drums and playing with a certain intensity and conviction, and a command. And so as I said, all music starts with rhythm. So trying to keep that, and that's the foundation of the whole sound. The rhythmic is a rhythmic foundation, and then from there, we take the music and go other places. But as long as the rhythm is in place, that's the foundation. You can't build a house on a weak foundation. And so the rhythm is the foundation of the music. So it has to be strong and it has to be in place in order for the music to really thrive.
Herlin, I did an extensive background on your career, and New Orleans, we were just talking about just a second ago, New Orleans is home, and your uncles and your mother, your grandparents, they had a very, very important breed of musicality to your psyche. Tell me when music became really something that you knew that you wanted to do.
Well, music is all. I've always wanted to do music. It's like someone. I could play the drums from the time I can't remember when I started to play the drums. I say 3 or 4 years old, but I can't really remember. It's like someone asking you, when did you start to walk? And you can't remember when you started to walk or you started to talk. But that at some point you couldn't talk, and then then you could talk. So it's the same with music with me. My uncles were all musicians, the Lasty family. And they had a group called the Lasty Brothers Combo, and they were rehearsing my grandmother's house. And during that time, my mother would actually roll my crib into the room, and the music would kind of pacify me. That's the story she's told me, and so the music was always a part of me. Always, I can remember hearing Sister Sadie and moaning, man, when I was knee high to a duck. And so I never had to go back and research and try to find out, listen to records or, you know, to get I didn't have to go back to get a feel for the music. The music was always a part of me and always there, and so it's just something that I just grew up having around me.
Here's a little caveat. You started off on playing trumpet before you segued right into playing drums. And also, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but when you were playing trumpet, you kind of brushed elbows with a budding young lion by the name of Wynton Marsalis along the way.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Wynton and I played the trumpet from the time I was about 12 until about 18, and so there was a group that was formed in New Orleans called the Fairview Baptist Church Christian Band, and this group was put together by a great banjoist, a guitarist by the name of Mr. Danny Barker. Danny Barker had played with Cab Calloway and Billie Holiday and people like that, back in the 40s and 30s and 40s in New York. So when he retired, he came to New Orleans and he put this band together of all young kids. And the age range was from about 8 until about 18. And so when I joined Wynton's band in '88, he and I talked about, that particular band, and we talked about, being there. And we talked about. We said, "Hey man, did you play in the Fairview band?" I was like, "Yeah, I played there." He said, "Well, I played there too." I said, "Well, man, I never saw you there." He said, "I never saw you either." So finally, someone came up with a photograph, and there it is. Sure enough, Wynton and I are standing there playing the trumpet together. Wynton must have been maybe about 10, and I was about maybe 14 or so at the time. And but the picture's there to prove it that we were there together. And but I must say, Wynton Marsalis is one of the people that made me put the trumpet down, because he has such command of the instrument and he's so fluid on the instrument, and I was struggling to try to play the trumpet, man. I was struggling, my embouchure was all messed up, man. I couldn't get my fingerings and stuff together, but I just had the music in me, but I just couldn't get it out through the trumpet, and so I went back to the drums. I could always play the drums. But I happened to get a trumpet when I was 12 years old from my Uncle Melvin, and he sent me a trumpet, and I started to play then. But I wasn't really. I was good. I was okay, but I wasn't as proficient as a lot of my peers at the time.
Well, what is it about the drums? And also I want to add another back. I want to add something to this question too. New Orleans has always been a very important place, not only just to the history of jazz and music, but New Orleans has always had a dynamic history of lineage of trumpet players as well as drummers and percussionists. What is it about that city that continues? And growing up in New Orleans, what was it about that city that helped you become a great musician or a better musician?
Well, the fact is, the city affords you a lot of opportunities as a young person to learn how to play, and it gives you not only to learn how to play, but gives you places to play. New Orleans is a very, very big tourist town, and as a result of being, and the history of New Orleans is definitely associated with jazz and improvisation, and so the musicians there, young musicians there, are always trying to, or aspire to develop their craft and to play. There are a lot of even today in high school, there are a lot of brass bands that are formed from high school bands, and the brass bands goes on the street and they play. And as I said, being a big tourist town, there's a lot of venues, there's a lot of clubs, there's a lot of conventions that come to town. Also, there's a lot of in New Orleans, there's a lot of social and pleasure clubs, and these clubs come out on the street, maybe twice a year or so, and they have these parades, and they always hire a band to play. And so the band plays, and everybody's walking down the street, man. If you're in the second line and you're going on down the street, man, you get caught up in this whole procession of musicians. Of people with the music, and you can walk 5 miles, just like walking 2 blocks, and don't even feel it, because the music, the spirit of the music, and the drive of the music is always in place. So New Orleans affords musicians an opportunity to develop, to grow, and it gives you the opportunities to not only to to just practice something in a practice room, but it gives you an opportunity to present it in front of people. And there's a spirit there, even with the jazz funerals, there's music is a part of the whole social scope of being in New Orleans. So as a musician, it's a great place to grow up and to develop.
I mean, when I think of New Orleans drummers, I think of Earl Palmer. I think of James Black, Smokey Johnson. I mean, Idris Muhammad, God rest his soul. I mean, you coming out of a great lineage of funk, soul, and jazz drummers all in one.
Well, I am standing on some great shoulders, and and as I said, being from New Orleans, you got to hear all those styles of music, and you got to experience it. You got to play all those styles of music. Funk, you got to play jazz, I got to play Latin music, I got to play early second line music, the traditional jazz. So it afforded me a lot of opportunities, and the musicians who came before me, they all had something to say, and each one of them. The ones that you mentioned, they talked to me at some point, and they told me, pointed me in some certain directions as far as, learning to play was concerned. And so Mr. Danny Barker also, he imparted a lot of knowledge, and he also expressed the fact that it was important that we went back and, taught somebody else who were behind us, teach somebody who's coming up behind us, give them some information as well, to keep the music flowing. My analogy of jazz music is that the art of jazz is the queen bee, and we're the musicians, we're the workers to sustain it, to sustain the queen. The queen is jazz, and so as musicians we're trying to just sustain the music through teaching other ones, through teaching the younger ones behind us.
knows you, the jazz community knows you from your association and your partnership with Wynton Marsalis and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, and also the great, the honorable, one of the gods of the piano, our dear friend Ahmad Jamal. And you went from different amalgamations of you went sextet, quartet, big band, trio. How has all of those shaped you musically? Because Wynton demands and commands certain things from musicians as well as Mr. Jamal.
Well, as a drummer, you have to allow yourself, to become like water, and take on whatever shape that you're confronted with. And so the shape of Wynton's music and his sound is different from the shape of Ahmad Jamal's music, or the shape of Al Hurt's music, or the shape of Diane Reeves or Cassandra Wilson. All these people have their own different sound in their music. And so as a drummer, I just had to find my way inside of their sound to be honestly, and to express my thing inside of their sound. And so I think that's very important, that young musicians or young drummers allow themselves to learn different styles, and to learn the history of the music, so that when it's time, you can shift and go into any groove or any direction that the music is calling for. So it's important that you get as much information as you can.
Ahmad Jamal, his presence. There are only a handful of our great pianists, legends like him, that are still around. What was that like for you as a musician, and what kind of pianist was he?
Is he? Because he's still around. I just recorded with Ahmad Jamal about a month ago, and we did a concert, and although he's 86 years old now, he's still playing like he's 26, and he still has a command and the fire of the instrument, and he gives me so much inspiration. Just being around him, being in his presence is so inspirational, because he's he first of all, he has a command of his instrument. Second of all, he has a command of the stage, and everything that's around him. So it was when I first joined his band, it was so easy to work with him, because he when he would play a song around 2 or 3 times, and before he even brought you in, you would hear the song, and then hear the tune, and with all the changes and the bridges and the interludes and whatnot. And then after he played it around, maybe once or twice, he would invite you to come in and join and play with him. So I understood in working with him, he shaped. The music was already shaped, it was already in place. All I had to do was just come there and put a groove on it. And so working with him has always been so easy and so thrilling at the same time, and amazing, because sometimes I look at him, the stuff that he does on the piano is so amazing, and it's not always the notes and stuff that he plays. It's just how he speaks to you through the instrument, which is incredible. It's incredible how that the command and that he has of the instrument, but the command that he has, the way that he can communicate, through the piano, is really, really incredible. And I've never met anyone like him. And Wynton Marsalis was my dear friend, and that was a whole another kind of way of playing with Wynton. Wynton, a lot of his music was written, and but Ahmad Jamal, he never writes his, well, sometimes he might write out a chart or write out a lead sheet or something, but most of his music is just coming from the top of his head. Not the top of his head, but he just plays. He just plays, and you join in and you hear it and you say, okay, here, just let's go with this. So it was it's incredible just to work with Ahmad, and also to work with Wynton as well. There were 2 extremely gifted artists, and but in 2 diverse different ways, diverse ways, and but I'm very honored to have worked with both of them.
This evening make your debut to the jazz community, the Detroit jazz community, and a lot of people are going to see for the very first time how you have really become Herlin Riley. What are some of the things you want people to take away from your music and from your band? And also, what are some of the things musically that you want to focus on in the future?
Well, I'll let the music shape the future. Whatever ideas come up, that's what'll come out. I'm not looking for any formulas or anything. I'm just looking for to be truthful and be honest. To be honest through my music. And what I would hope that people take from it is that I presented something that was pure. I want to present my music as pure, and I want to make the statement, that jazz is not dead. It's still alive, and it's a living, breathing art form, and it's in the moment. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the music. The music is being reshaped in a lot of ways. It's always evolving, But and sometimes it's evolving for not so much for the good. Sometimes sometimes it's a bad evolution, but we won't touch that. But I just would like people to leave my group, leave my band, leave my show feeling better than they did when they came in, And I just want to try to lift somebody's spirits through the music, and hopefully, we can accomplish that this afternoon.
That'll do it again for this very special edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting from this year's 2016 Detroit Jazz Festival here in downtown Detroit. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Herlin Riley for his time. People, make sure you go out and support his debut album on Mack Avenue Records, New Directions, which is now available on MackAvenueRecords.com as well as Amazon.com. Also, I'd like to personally congratulate and thank Chris Collins, the artistic director of the Detroit Jazz Festival, for putting on a fantastic festival as always, and also the staff and management of DL Media for arranging a lot of my interviews this year. As always, please visit my website, www.pacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.